And I find that the choice of media can be very, very powerful in engaging people. If I ever have the opportunity and live long enough, I'm going to teach a leadership course with nothing but videos. And there are just tons of really good videos, and there are actually universities and institutes that will provide you with the raw material, the instructor guides and things of that nature to do that. But I haven't quite gotten, one of the problems with media that I'll acknowledge is the fair use doctrine applies there, but if you're broadcasting, then you've got a different problem. I can show a video in a classroom that I cannot show in a broadcast environment because of copyright laws. Generally, if you show a clip of less than about 5 minutes, you're not going to have any copyright issues, but you can't show a whole video or a whole movie by rebroadcasting it. That'll get you that big blue emblem of the FBI seal thing. So I don't look good in orange, so I don't want to go to any federal prisons. Media is important, though, and getting people engaged, I find, is really important. I find assessments and exams, if they're structured for learning, can be particularly important. In particular, assessments that don't have a grade to them. Students seem to enjoy those a lot. When you put a grade to it, of course, it changes the dynamics, and it's like my Labrador Retriever. They snap to attention, and the idea is to get the treat, not to learn. For many people, I won't say that for everyone, but for many people. But if you can give them those, when I teach organizational behavior, for example, I have them do an emotional intelligence assessment. I have them do a Myers-Briggs type indicator, and they seem to learn a lot from that because it's an exploration of things that they haven't thought about. Exams, I always use essay questions in my exams, no matter whether I'm teaching finance or something of that nature, to give students a chance to explore. The other thing that I've found in the last couple of years to be very, very powerful is this whole idea of online journaling. A lot of students start out not liking that very much because they have never spent time journaling. But by the end of the semester, one of the feedback items that I get pretty regularly is the importance of the journal. And some former students have told me that they continue to do it. The reason I like to do it is to create self-awareness, so people will try to be a little bit more in touch with themselves. And sometimes they start out with 1 or 2 paragraphs. I had one student who was writing Russian novels. I mean, it would go 2 or 3 pages, and you'd have to flip through about 2 or 3 things of Blackboard to get to them. But anything you can do, in my mind, to get people engaged and thinking, even if you start them out with the minimal approach, it is important. I have students that don't like to write papers. And my approach to people who are reluctant to write papers is the following. Set yourself a schedule and start. And make yourself a promise that all you're going to do tomorrow, the only thing you're going to do is construct the title page. That's all you're going to do. And what I've found for many, many people is they start writing the title page and then they say, well, I can go ahead and outline it. And 2 or 3 hours later, they've got 20% of the paper written. So it's getting started and getting them engaged that I think is the beginning of their involvement. Homework, I think, is important. Getting them to reflect on what you've actually talked about, getting them to reflect outside the textbook answer, outside of the lecture answer, but what do you think? What do you, the student, think? You've got a mind, it's well-functioning, you've gotten into one of the best universities in the country. People come from thousands of miles away to attend this, so we must have pretty good standards. What do you think about things? Now, obviously, when I'm teaching calculus or finance, getting their opinions on net income is not going to help. But on most of the other topics, getting their opinions is a very useful way to engage others, because then you start these debates going on. And in the ethics class, I have wonderful debates about things. And there are some even among the millennials, there's some reasonably what you might consider to be old-fashioned views. So I try to construct the homework with as much setup as I can. When I construct my syllabus, what I try to do, my syllabi are about 8 or 12 pages, between 8 and 12 pages. The idea being I don't want them worried about what the content is. I don't want them worried about what's due. I want them to focus on getting it done. And so I work hard on getting that approach to take it. I also believe that feedback is really, really important. Initially, what I ask students to do is, if it's a live class, introduce each other. I go through the joint interview process. If it's a televised class, I ask them to fill out a form that I've developed over time to introduce themselves and talk about what's interesting to them. And I also ask for a picture so I can recognize who they are. What I find is one of the best ways to engage people is to learn their names, is to develop a relationship with them in that class. If I were to say, hey, you, that can be offensive. If I were to say, Loretta, what do you think? Or Mohammed, what do you think? That's a little bit different. That says that I'm actually engaging you. I actually care about you enough to learn your name. And I have classes they're fairly large, so it's very, very hard for me. I have to stand up there with the pictures and turn them, you know. So, Loretta. And that's the initial part of getting feedback, is to get them engaged and learning. I can learn who they are, they learn who each other is, and it forms more of a bond than it becomes more than a class. It's not just where you come for 3 hours. It becomes more of a social event. One of the things we know about our millennials in particular is they were big on social networks. They're big on collaborating together. They're big on joint kinds of things. So when you teach them that you care, you show them that you care by learning their names and learning a little bit about them, where they work, things like that. That can be a big part of getting them involved. They're going to care more about the class if they know you care more about them, as odd as that seems. Mid-course, I also tried through the midterm exams and any assignments that they get, I try to learn more about them. And then finally, what I do for every class I teach is the first question I ask is, it's an essay question and it's worth 10% of the grade for that exam, is what did you learn in this class? What was good? What was not so good? What would you change? And I've yet to have a student not give me a pretty good answer for all of that. And I tell them, if you write in there, this was the worst class I've ever had, that's a 10-point answer. You get 10 points for that. And I've had a few write that. And they got their points. And I try to use that to refine the things that I'm doing. Believe it or not, all the complaints I get about homework, I used to give about twice as much homework, so I have downsized it. I feel like I have to give a little bit more. And finally, I try to go back through after each semester, which I'm doing now for the spring semester, and refine what I've learned, get some new material, find out what I did right, find out what I could have done better, look at the feedback forms that come through the university, and see if there are ways to do things that are a little bit better and different. So that's kind of my quick lecture format. I didn't have any videos for you and didn't engage you the way I probably should, but I hope you'll forgive me. Any questions on anything that I can help you with? Any ideas for me? Yes, sir.
I want to share with you something that made my life a lot better in classroom. Whoever thought of this should get some type of ODU award, but when you go to Leo Online now, the student photographs are with their name, and it's fantastic. The first day of class, in the spring, when the students walked in, I talked to them and said, hi, man, well, come on in. They looked at you like, we don't know who, how do you know my name? It's just a great way to start the conversation, and I agree with what you say about getting them involved right away or you're going to lose them. You can usually tell about the tone of the class in the first day. You'll set the tone up the rest of the way. But I guess the students have their photo there when they've gotten an ID, and so not every student has their photo uploaded.
It's true.
If there's a way we can tighten that loop, that would be fantastic. But
yeah.
I just thought that was a brilliant move, and I just want to thank whoever did that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really like that. And the reason I like that better than them posting their own pictures is because sometimes they don't have good pictures, and some there's 40 people in there, you're supposed to pick them out, But I like the headshots. They're really good pictures. Other questions? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment. And that is, as a freshman English professor, I'm happy to know that a lot of engineering professors also require essays in their exams. So I will probably use your name in my English classes. So thank you.
Thank you. I also should note that in the question it says, you know, tell me about this or that, and normally half of the exam is essay, but I tell them right up front that grammar, punctuation, and spelling are gradable items, and this is not an instant messaging. This is a formal class, and I require that for all my. They post their case study answers as well as present them, and I require them to use college-level grammar. So I agree with you. Communications are so important, especially to our engineers who want to shortcut everything. And I give them a story from my years at NASA, which is the senior NASA people would always get together and they would have this conundrum, which is we don't always get the best ideas that come to the top. We get the engineers who have the best way of presenting their ideas. And that seems to resonate with people in the engineering community, because you might have engineers tend to be arrogant. And the idea is, this is a brilliant idea. If you can't see the brilliance of the idea, then you're not worthy of me presenting it to you. Well, that doesn't work when you're talking to the administrator of NASA. You know, you've got to sell him on things. So you're right. And poor grammar, I have a affliction that runs that I can spot misspellings and poor grammar. And there's more of that in the newspapers today than ever before. And it really bugs me. So don't get me started on that. Yes, ma'am.
Both for my lower level and upper level classes, I give them, the rest can talk. Some don't talk, so I give them writing essays. But I make it optional. Mm-hmm. Do you have any experience whether, because I'll give you my data later, of students, if it's optional, will they do the writing? And they get credit for that, just for writing. The others just for talking, they get credit as well, because some can talk up front and would rather just write. To make writing optional.
No, I never make writing optional, but I will say a word about optional extra credit. I have had students in some of my classes, I've given as much as 50% extra credit, and I've had students finish the course with a course score of 150%. It's like they're addicted to doing the homework, and if you give them a problem, they'll solve it. Others will do exactly enough to get the A or the whatever it is. But writing is too important, I think, in my mind, to make it optional, as well as speaking. So you do have to write and you do have to speak in my classes. Whether that's right or not, I don't know, but yes, ma'am.
What I'm saying by writing, they have required writing, but also optional writing. What I notice is, if it is not required and I make it optional, they don't do it.
I haven't had that experience.
Well, I'll give you data because I have over the years. Yeah.
I have certain, it may be cultural, I don't know if it's cultural or not, but I find certain students from certain regions of the world, if I give them assignments, they will do every one of them no matter whether it's extra credit or not. American students tend to fall into, most of them won't do the optional, some of them will.
American students.
Okay, I think my time is done. So I thank you for your interest and have a good summer institute.